Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final 2023 National PM Pricing Report Reveal. June 2023, and we are so excited to launch to the industry, in my knowledge, one of the first ever national pricing reports to make your job as a property manager just that much easier. Well, hey, thanks so much for jumping in today. So glad to have you all online today for what I think is, if I'm not mistaken, based off the data that Alicia's given me to share with you today, going to be one of the most impactful, potentially from at least a pricing perspective, webinars that hopefully you've ever attended related to property management. That's a big claim, but I've got data to share with you today that is truly groundbreaking, and really excited to share that with you, and truly thankful for all of the brave property managers that joined in to put this data set together, and really excited to share these results with you. Really appreciate you joining live today. And if you are joining us live, I just want to ask you to jump into chat and tell us where you're tuning in from. And this is a new one. Jump into chat and tell us one thing you love about property management. Now, I know that's a little bit of a risky ask, but hey, there's things to be grateful for. So I want to make this a little bit more specific. I know there's 72 of you on live right now, and you can hear me talking, so jump into chat. What's one thing that where are you tuning in from, and one thing you love about property management? Sam, he loves team building. Jeremy, recurring revenue, but far more importantly, the ability to build the verticals, networking with other PM owners, owning my own business. Russ, one thing I love is profit. Gavin, always a new challenge. Freedom, Mike, you're talking my language. And I love this one. 2 days are never the same. If you like variety in life, you have come to the right industry. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in today. We've got some great panelists in the house. Adam Willis, president at Nessville Property Management, and then our very own director of insight here at ProfitCoach, Alicia McClurg, the analyst behind the data that I get to share with you today. And Alicia has the unfortunate job of being the recipient of sometimes harebrained ideas from yours truly. And Alicia, thank you very much for all that you've contributed to this study. And of course, me, author of the NARPM Accounting Standards, CEO here at ProfitCoach. We help property managers expand their entrepreneurial freedom by building highly profitable, self-managing companies. All right. We have been on a quest to answer this question: how can we make the biggest impact in fueling entrepreneurial freedom for property managers? This is why we exist. We are here for this industry. We are here for entrepreneurial freedom, and we are here for you. And this spring, as we were looking to answer that question, we were coming off of the NARPM Accounting Standards, the 2022 Financial Benchmarks Guide being released last year, and our experience that we have a unique opportunity in this industry to take a community-driven approach to finance, where we're learning together, we're setting targets together, we're understanding what performance looks like in the industry. Everyone's playing the game, everyone's playing community, every position has a scoreboard so everyone can win. And as we kind of are pulling all of these pieces of the puzzle together, we're asking ourselves, how can we make the biggest impact in fueling entrepreneurial freedom for property managers? And we came up with really two conclusions of our analysis. Number one, that pricing is the most dynamic lever in your business. And the work to optimize pricing is not done. And I'm going to prove that to you in just a moment. But what we have found through our analysis, through working with hundreds of property managers, is that pricing is the most dynamic lever in your business. It is one of the fastest ways to make improvement in profitability, and one of the fastest ways to drive change in your organization. And what we've often seen is a mantra that I like to say frequently around pricing, and that is that a 10% increase in revenue per unit can often mean a 100% increase in profits. 10% increase in revenue per unit can often mean 100% increase in profits. And probably no one knows this better than the team at Nestwell. Adam, you guys just even over the last 3 years have had a pretty significant journey when it comes to revenue per unit. And I think this mantra bears itself out pretty well, at least in general principle in your guys' organization. Just at a high level, what's the story there?
The backstory, we operated a ton by fill without very clear metrics or being very intentional. And we said, oh, I'm going to go to that guy's website and just kind of mimic them. And we called it good. Revenue per unit was about half of what it is today in 2-3 years time.
Wow. So to put that another way, you guys have more than done a 10% increase. And I know what the numbers are on the profit side of things. I'm not going to make you share those things right now, but I can say it's more than 2x on profitability. Your guys' story for the last couple of years has been tremendous. So pricing is a tremendous lever. And we've discussed this. It's the most dynamic lever in your business. Secondly, getting your teams on board is one of your biggest challenges to making this happen. Okay. I want to just have you guys jump into chat. When you guys talk about rolling out a price increase, what are some common responses that you get from your team? So go ahead and make sure that you're chatting to everyone, not just hosts and panelists. That goes for you too, Sadie. And give us some feedback on what you hear from your team when you want to roll out something new in terms of pricing to tenants or owners. Challenge of actually how to accurately explain the benefits to owners. Again, Nathan saying the same thing, worried about an upset owner. Good, Mike. Mike says the team is generally supportive. Jason, if you're the Jason I'm thinking of, you've been at this a while and now your team loves it. Okay, it gets more complicated. So a lot of variety here, but in general, what we have found is our feedback from clients is getting teams on board is one of the biggest challenges. Oftentimes teams, like people are saying, don't know what the benefits are, and they often don't know what it means to them. And what I've experienced is that oftentimes this really comes down to being just the owner's responsibility. Adam, any feedback on what you see when it comes to team engagement on pricing changes?
Yeah, the two thoughts is one, all of our clients are going to fire us and we're going to be out of business with these changes. Yeah. And it's just so much fear around that. In actuality, the reception is pretty good. The pushback is fairly minimal. The other thing that we get asked is what's in it for me? Like if a teammate is going to implement this and take it on the chin and have these hard conversations, what's in it for them? Like, why would they want to make their job harder by engaging in these tough conversations?
Yeah, a great feedback. And I think kind of to summarize the issue here, most of us do pricing in a very ad hoc way. I'm going to raise my own hand on that. Okay. And that's essentially the problem is we don't have a pricing process. Most of us as entrepreneurs, most PMs, I can just tell you today, I'm going to say 99% of PMs don't have a pricing process. They probably have operational processes for almost every aspect of their business. They might even have a sales and marketing process, but 99% of PMs, I'm going to venture to say, have not operationalized pricing in their business. And that's the problem that we really want to help property managers solve. Why? Because pricing is growth. Pricing is critical. Pricing is one of the most impactful, I'm going to say actually the most impactful way to grow your business. Here's a quick chart. All you need to know is this is the relative impact of getting new clients on growth according to a study that was done on subscription-based businesses. Here's the impact of getting retention, increasing retention, lowering churn on increasing growth. And here's the impact, relative impact of pricing. Monetization is the most significant way to actually grow bottom line revenue in your business. That's why this is important. So what is a pricing process? It's an operationalized quarterly team endeavor focused on value maximization. And I really want to lay this groundwork as we get into the data, because what I don't want to have happen, hopefully, is people go get the report and they tuck it away in their Gmail folder somewhere, and it's just sort of on the owner's brain. No, this report is designed to help you guys implement a data-driven, quarterly operationalized team endeavor focused on value maximization. Okay, so to set the stage for diving into the data, Alicia's going to give us the overview of the report in just a moment. I want to just throw out a couple of questions here, and this is a frequency question. So go ahead and jump into this poll. How frequently are you reviewing pricing and implementing changes? Monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, every few years as I feel the need. You might think, okay, I signed up to this call to understand this pricing report, and now I'm being asked like how frequently I do changes. What's the connection? Here's the connection. The same study that I just showed you a moment ago on subscription-based businesses. Of course, property management is a subscription-based business. Basically, the study was done by Price Intelligently, and what they wanted to look at was how does frequency of pricing review and pricing change impact improvement of ARPU, or revenue per unit, over time. And essentially what they found was that companies that looked at their prices very, very infrequently, no change in 3 years, experienced very little improvement or impact or growth on their revenue per unit. On the flip side of the coin, companies that updated their pricing every quarter had, over the course of 5 years, more than doubled their revenue per unit. And so the point is, frequency of reviewing pricing is extremely critical, makes a huge impact, according to the data, of getting your revenue per unit up. So throwing up the poll results here, quarterly is ideal, according to this study. 5% of you are reviewing your pricing on a quarterly basis. Okay, case made. All right, so you need the pricing process in your business, a quarterly operationalized, team-driven endeavor focused on value maximization. 29% of you are annually, and about half of the people on the call today, we have 113 so far, are basically doing it every few years or as I feel the need. Okay, so hopefully this motivates you to engage with this definition of a pricing process. Okay, now next question is how do you actually go about making changes? So choice number 4, you don't get to select that one. Okay, how do you go about making changes? You primarily set pricing based on gut feel. There's always one person in the house that's going to choose the odd option. Okay, local market analysis, input from PM peers, and then some of you you've developed this new method of pricing called choice number 4. It's actually a new protocol we're going to roll out later in the call. But anyways, gut feel, local market analysis, input from peers. I'm going to throw up these results right here, and we've got about 19% using gut feel, 37% from local market analysis, and the majority, this is really interesting, want input from their peers. Okay, which is really awesome, because here's what we're about to show you. We're about to show you a synthesized, summarized view of pricing with input from your peers, not just 5, not just 10, but 200 different property managers. Okay, so that's the whole point of this analysis, is to give you that input from your peers on a national basis. Now, this is really community-driven finance at its finest. And this is probably the point in the webinar where people are like, now, like, are we allowed to share this kind of information? And that's a really good question, okay? That's a really good question. Here's what you need to know about sharing financial information and sharing pricing information between peers. Number one, you need to understand that the difference between public and non-public information, okay? There's no problem sharing or talking about public information. It's public information. Okay, I think that should stand to reason, right? What is public versus non-public information? a rule of thumb on this, and by the way, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an expert on this, but this is what my attorneys tell me, is that a good rule of thumb is what something, for in terms of understanding non-public information, something you'd have to sign an NDA for, or something that you would have to see in a contract. Okay. But if it's on the website displayed publicly, it's public information. Okay. So number one, no issue with sharing public information. The issue potentially is around sharing non-public information. And so here are the parameters in which this information can be shared. Well, it can be shared with a third-party aggregator like ProfitCoach. Doesn't have is not in competition with the people providing the data, and there must be at least 5 data sources. Okay, we've got about 201, so we're clear there. And no one source can represent more than 20% of the data. And individual contributors cannot be identifiable. Okay, so that's the context in which we can have a community-driven conversation around finance and specifically around pricing. So hope that helps. And we want to dive into those results right now. And so Alicia, why don't you go ahead and take over screen sharing, and just actually, before we have you screen share, why don't you just walk us through the method that we use for the study. And by the way, probably most of the people on this webinar contributed to the report. Again, we really want to thank you for that. If you did contribute, you already have access to this. It was shared with everybody no later than yesterday. If you haven't gotten access and you thought you contributed, just shoot us an email, info@pmprofitcoach.com. And we'd be happy to help answer that question. So if you contributed, you've got free access. If you're on the webinar today and you didn't contribute, we've put a ton of data and analysis and work into what I'm about to show you. And you're welcome to purchase. We'd love to see you purchase this report, $495. You can go to pmprofitcoach.com/pricing. And I'm pretty convinced that'll be the best $495 you ever spent in terms of having the best data in the industry around maximizing your pricing. Okay, Alicia, talk us through the data makeup for the study and the analysis process.
Absolutely. So this was a fun study to run. We had quite a good response of people signing up. We ended up with 201 final contributors, as Daniel has mentioned. And it's a pretty wide geographical spread. I think we had folks from all across the US, maybe even a couple from Canada, and really a wide range of experiences that found value in wanting to jump in and participate. We had an average rent ranging from $580 to $4,500. We had a unit count ranging from 10 to 4,000. It's like you've got all sorts of experiences on the spectrum here that found value in the idea of let's figure out the whole pricing thing. And so we were really excited to have this wide range of participants joining in.
And I think a solid unit average there of 452. That's actually very close to what we had in the NARPM accounting standards as well. And I think represents the PM community really well.
Absolutely. So when we went through the process of getting this set up, we identified several common questions that a lot of people tend to ask about pricing, but aren't sure they're supposed to ask or aren't sure where to find the answers, including figuring out what's being charged or what can't be charged, details about what the amount is or how it's being calculated, things about, so how will people react? How do we implement this? How do we message this? Lots of questions around different areas of pricing and that we structured the survey to answer. So when we got all of the data in, we went through a cleaning process, which included removing duplicate form entries. There were a number of conflicting answers. For example, we had a section up front where the contributors could tell us which fees they charged. And then we would ask for details on the fees. Well, there were a couple times where there were confusion points where someone would have checked the box saying, yes, I charge the fee. And then they came back saying, no, we don't charge. No, I'm not sure why I see this question. So we would remove that kind of data coming in. There were several assumptions and adoption pieces that we would clean up. We organized it, we anonymized the data, and then we calculated several key aggregation metrics, including checking on how the frequency of each fee impacted its impact, what the RPU contribution was per month on average. We even looked at different open responses that weren't part of our preset options, but what were some of the other ways that people reported calculating or rolling out the fees, so that you get a full range of what the real options are and what's possible. And the other thing that we made sure to do was, because we had such a wide range of experiences, come back and slice it up by some of these common factors. So if you're in the $580 to $1,000 average rent bracket, what actually is reasonable for you to look at? If your unit count is, 1,500 to 2,000, what makes sense for you? So there's a lot of the pieces there where you'll see the overall average, and then you'll see what the average is for your particular bracket. You can zoom in and find what applies to you specifically.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go ahead and share your screen, Alicia, and walk us through the actual report and the layout of it and how to use it. And then Adam and I will dive into the fees.
Absolutely. So this is the 2023 National PM Pricing Report. For those of you who have access to the report, you'll see a couple of links to video tours that will give you some of this information if you need it later. But there's several major sections to look at with the report. The biggest one, of course, is the breakout of each specific fee. And you'll see a tab down here for each type of fee that was studied in the report. And there's a couple ways to get to those. You can click through and scroll through these down here, or they're linked in several places, including in the summary tab along the side, or in the glossary tab at the very back, which we'll take a look at. Let's take a look at the summary tab for a second. Everything that we did study is here in something of a comparison table, so that you're able to see how it ranks, how they all rank among themselves in terms of what the contribution is to your monthly RPU, as well as how did people respond when the fee was implemented. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then you've got several different top 10 views in different forms. What fees were the top 10 essentially most popular fees to roll out? Which are the top 10 in contribution for RPU? So you have the summary that kind of gives you an overall comparison. And then we have the deep dive into each fee type. We'll pick on the inspection fee. So this is where
I'm
we
going to get into
start.
some of the specific fee stuff, but go ahead in terms of going through some of the layout. But sorry, go ahead and give us this example.
Sure. So I won't get too detailed, but this is essentially where we try to answer all of those questions that we were posing to ourselves at the beginning of the survey. What are the answers to how much do you charge for this fee, and what kind of structure? You've got the ideas for how the fee was structured. You've got information on what fee amounts are coming through. You've got information here on how did people respond when that fee was rolled out. And we have the score down here, where if it's closer to a 1, that was a negative reaction. If it's a 5, that was neutral or no response. And if it was 10, it was positive. So this is a fairly positive response here, 6 out of 10 in terms of what we saw through the survey. But you'll get a lot of the information here on how do you roll it out, how do you implement this, and what types of scams are actually possible within a given fee type. So you'll see that through each of these fees, the same types of information. Some were and weren't applicable to different fees, so the exact charts vary per fee, but it's the same sections, same information. All the way at the end, you'll find a glossary that gives you the definition that we're working off of for each of these fees. And again, the fees are linked in here so you can jump straight to the one that you're curious about. The additional responses tab gives some of those open responses we were talking about. These were fees we didn't study, but that our respondents told us they did charge in different cases. So these are just here for a reference point as well. But that gives you a pretty quick view of the way this is laid out and the way things are structured. Daniel, any other detail on this?
No, that's great. And we'll probably get into some nuances like event-based billing versus monthly billing as we get in here. But great overview, and love how you laid this out, Alicia. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into talking a little bit about some of the specific fees that Alicia just mentioned. And for the purposes of today's webinar, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking through the top 10 fees in terms of revenue per unit contribution. And I think it's just important to say that at the outset, some of these are definitely not new, but in terms of the way that the fee is rolled out, or in terms of the fee structure, or in terms of what's possible, there might be some things that stretch your boxes a little bit in terms of what's possible. So let's go ahead and dive in, and we're going to go ahead and talk about leasing for starters. Obviously, most people charge leasing fees. Not everybody does. But if you are charging a leasing fee, or if you're not, the question is still what's possible? What would I want to charge? And so I'm going to pull this leasing fee tab up here. And we're going to see that there's some really interesting data here to dive into. First of all is just being aware of the different approaches to the fee. Some people charge percent of rent. That's approximately 65% of the study. And but about 20% are charging flat. And then there's some other options that involve tiered pricing. But what I want to point out here is in this table right here, what you're going to see is a mix of data relative to flat pricing as well as percent pricing. Okay. And so there's two approaches, and we have basically siloed that data that came to us and shown you what the minimum flat fee is, what the maximum flat fee was that we saw, what the average flat fee is for those that do flat fee, and what the average flat fee is for the top 25% of PMs who charge the most on a flat leasing fee. Okay. And so again, right there, tons of great data. If you're like, yeah, I want to do a leasing fee, and I certainly do it flat, against the majority right there, then this is phenomenal data for you to make that determination with. Now, if you're in the percent camp, this is really useful. I would say the majority of people here are looking at a 50% leasing fee. Okay. That's this line of dots. I'm guessing, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's this line of dots right here. And would this line of dots be a 75% leasing fees?
That top line is your 100% line. Okay. You've got this one kind of in between,
75.
Right,
yeah, and there's 100%. Okay. And so what you can see is kind of the minimum to maximum in terms of percent calculations. Then the average is 61%. And the top 25% of performers are at 81.7. So I would definitely say that we see the industry shifting towards a significant increase on leasing fee. And so right now, like if you're on this webinar and you're charging a 50% leasing fee, Adam, what do you guys do? I'm going to put you on the spot.
No problems. We have a tiered system, so we're a smaller sliver there. And it's our main one is 39% of 1 month's rent is our stronghold there.
Okay, well, this is some good data for you.
Opportunity,
right? But what I think we can say is we're looking at this is the industry is definitely shifting to somewhere in the neighborhood of a 75 to 100% leasing fee. Now, some of you are going to be like, okay, but wait a minute. I want to have comparison to like something that applies to me. Like not everybody's the same, and we've answered all those questions for you. I'm going to take you down to this massive data table right here, okay? And this is a table that was designed to answer pretty much every permutation of question around the applicability of the fee. Now, the one thing we don't have in here is your local market, and I'm sorry. So that's not in here, but pretty much everything else is. And so what you can see here is that we've basically bracketed average rent, revenue per unit, what percent of the portfolio is multifamily. If some of you are like, yeah, I don't want to have any multifamily considerations in, or I am 100%, I'm 76 or greater percent multifamily, then you can look at this line. If you want to look at unit size, find companies that are relative to you, you can look at that section, or if you want to basically segment by the average fee. But we had an interesting conversation that was actually with you, Adam, and Mark on our coaching call last week. And we were what were we talking about? What fee was it? Was it, I don't know, it was like a lease initiation fee or something. And Mark's like, okay, but they may charge that fee. Oh, it was an owner setup fee or something like that. And Mark was like, yeah, but they charge that fee, but what is their overall revenue per unit? Like, is that really an apples to apples comparison for us? And so we said, all right, what's your average revenue per unit? I'm not going to reveal what that is for Nestwell, but let's just say it's this 165 line. You could say, all right, well, if we were looking at a percent leasing fee and you want to find the fee that's relevant to you, here's the minimum on leasing, here's the maximum. And okay, the average leasing fee is 63% for that revenue per unit bracket, or 62% for that average rent bracket. Okay, so the point here is that this is extremely segmentable to give you specific answers around what people are charging in your revenue per unit bracket, your average rent bracket, your size bracket. So if you have questions on that, go ahead and jump into chat, and hopefully we can answer those in real time. Hopefully that makes sense. Alicia, can you catch Rich's question there? Yeah. Awesome. So that is this table right here. Estimated revenue per unit contribution based off of a 30-month tenant lifetime. So we're just running some general calculations here to try to give a sense of what the opportunity is, and then you can see how the fees correlate to average rent. Okay, and this is really helpful because, again, you can kind of see where the market is, and just at a glance get a sense of, okay, what is the market doing on this? And we'll see the value of this as we get into other fees. Here's how the fees rolled out. No surprise here, and 98% mandatorily charge a leasing fee. And then we also, I'm sorry, let me say that again. 98%, the overall adoption of this fee inside a portfolio is 98%. So in other words, the PMs themselves, we asked them, what percent of your portfolio has adopted this fee? And the answer is 98% on average. We also asked everybody in general whether or not they've adopted this fee. And across the industry, 80% of people have adopted a leasing fee. 19% have not adopted a leasing fee. Okay, so if you're part of that 19%, I would say this: make sure you're getting a lot of marketing juice out of not charging a leasing fee as part of your unique value proposition, because it is the most significant revenue stream outside of a management fee. Okay, and then also the implementation response here. Adam, any other comments or observations on this one before we move on?
For me, we were always, like I said earlier, kind of making decisions based off of going to our local competitors, or maybe it's a franchisee and looking at their websites and making comparisons that way. I've realized that's not the best way to aggregate information. Yes, it gives you maybe elasticity in the market, where this actually provides bumpers. Oh, yeah. This is your minimum, this is your maximum, and this is where kind of everyone's hanging out. And so it makes making a decision a lot faster. And I'm sure you're going to get into this, but how just you can move through saying, these are the fees that we're going to work on. Here's why, here's the price that we're going to pick. Here's why. And it just gives you, it answers a lot of the questions instead of kind of guessing and digging into it and asking 3 people and saying, that's a good sample. This is huge, huge, huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, and I love that, Adam, because the other thing here too is if in terms of pricing strategy, you also have to ask the question, like, how much do you want to let your market define it? Certainly it's going to be part of the conversation, but do you want to be the market leader in pricing? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but at the end of the day, understanding what's going on nationally is going to help you understand what the opportunity is and the opportunity to lead your market and pricing. And you say, why would I want to do that? Well, because pricing is one of the best ways to actually communicate value. Yeah, you were going to say, Adam.
Yeah, raising tides raises all ships, right? So like, I never want to be the cheapest guy on the block. I only want to work with those clients that see my value. And so I always kind of want to be on the bleeding edge of being more high touch, more expensive, and known as that. My brand is that. So.
All right, before we move on, I just want to also point out some of the third-party providers on here. And these are people, these are options that people selected. Sorry, they were not pre-populated. These are things that people offered voluntarily around tools they're using around leasing. Okay, a couple of things coming into chat here. Ryan, is there a way to compare fees along with management fees? For example, I guess that companies with higher management fees might have lower leasing fees. Secondly, is it better to charge a lower management fee and a higher leasing fee? That's a really good point, Ryan. And Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, we have not analyzed that first correlation yet, but I can't think of any reason that we couldn't. I'm not going to commit you to that on the call here, talk about gun to the head. But any interaction on that question, Alicia?
Sure. Rephrase the question one more time.
Yeah, could we basically correlate? Basically, I think another way of asking the question is, could we add a management fee bracket down here?
That should theoretically be possible. Yeah, we didn't do that, but
an innovation in real time. All right, so Ryan, great point. We'll take a look at that. Secondly, is it better to charge a lower management fee and a higher leasing fee? I want to be careful about saying better because there's no right way, but I would say generally speaking, the unbundled approach to pricing, which would generally correlate to a lower management fee and more revenue from ancillary fees, is going to drive a higher revenue per unit. We see that very, very consistently. We have the data actually to show it. I don't have it on the slide deck today, but part of the NARPM accounting standards analyze that, and definitely would say that the unbundled approach is going to drive higher revenue. So hopefully that helps. Is it standard to charge a different leasing fee for a renewal rather than a lease? And the answer is yes, and that's what we're going to go to next. So let's go to talk about owner renewal fee. We're going to skip the pet fee for just a moment, but owner renewal fee is something that is a little bit less common. You can see 80% of people charge a leasing fee, only 73% of people charge a renewal fee. But what I want to point out here is, again, the possibility around renewal fees. And I would say historically, the approach to renewal fee has been a flat fee. You can see kind of the minimum, the maximum. And I would say this, this data right here rings 100% true with my experience in terms of an average flat renewal fee. But what I want to point out is the opportunity around a percent-based renewal fee. And the thing that I love about a percent-based renewal fee is I find a lot of alignment there with the owners because of the opportunity to do rent increases if you're not in a rent-controlled market. And so I love this because essentially, you're aligned with the owner to do the best you can for the unit in terms of maximizing the rent. And then, of course, the PM gets to benefit from that. But you can kind of see there's a lot of people actually that are doing a 50% renewal fee, which I would say is on the high end. Generally speaking, I've seen more around 25%, maybe 35% to be common as a percentage. But you can see, there's a good chunk of people that are collecting in dollar amounts renewal fees over $500. and a lot of people that are collecting over 250. Any comments on this, Adam?
No, I think it's as long as you can sleep at night when you're justifying these fees and what your value. In my experience, leasing a vacant property versus renewing a current tenant is not as heavy of a lift. And I think that's where there's the delta between charging the same for both services. I'm aware of one company in Colorado that used to charge equal, and he would say, well, I want to be incentivized to keep the tenant, not go find a new one and incur the vacancy and the turnover costs, etc. And he was able to justify that. But that's definitely not the norm. I love pushing the envelope though.
Yeah. To you, Gavin, what is an owner renewal fee? An owner renewal fee is a fee that's charged to the owners as compensation for processing the renewal with the tenant and getting another 12-month contract, and oftentimes simultaneously increasing rents. Did I pass muster on that definition, Adam?
Yeah, that was good. And that's just on the owner side. There might be opportunity to charge the tenant fee as well.
That's right.
In the lease.
Okay. Just going to see if there's anything else here of note. I think that really covers it for the most part. Again, a chunk of people doing a percent base. So this is basically swapped. On a leasing fee, most everybody, I think it was like 65% actually, it's kind of interesting, was actually percent based. On the renewal fee, 65% are actually doing percent and are doing flat, and 23% are doing percent base. So an interesting potential opportunity there as well. Okay. Let's go back to the summary and let's look at number 2. And I am excited about this one because I think there's a ton of value here and significant opportunity. And that's the tenant pet fee, pet rent, as it's also known. And essentially, the reason I say that there's significant amount of opportunity here with the tenant pet fee is because of the degree of adoption around this from an industry perspective. Less than half of the industry actually has a pet fee, and which is really notable because what that means is potentially half the people on this call are not taking advantage of the third biggest revenue driver of revenue after management fee, leasing fee. Right in there is going to be pet fee with renewal. Okay. So it's a close tie there for third place. This is a huge opportunity. Adam, why don't you just kind of give us, the 30-second pitch on what this is all about?
Basically, it's a guarantee. So we charge this fee. When a tenant comes in, they say, I have a dog. We say, great, you're going to pay, $25 to $45 or what is it, $15 to $100 a month to allow a pet into our property. And we're going to keep that as the property management company. And in turn, we're going to offer a guarantee that if that animal that we allowed in your rental, Mr. Homeowner, if it damages the property for any reason, we will give you, we'll have the tenant security deposit, we'll make deductions from that. And then we'll offer a guarantee of, $500, $3,000, $5,000 above the tenant security deposit. And it is a very lucrative thing to do. And adoption is relatively good, as you can see by the, 5.6 out of 10. That lift, that barrier to entry isn't too bad.
Yeah. So a couple of interesting things here on the pet fee. First of all, some of you are like, I've not charged this. Okay, you just got the pitch from Adam on what this would look like. Some of you are thinking, I already do charge this. Let me push the envelope on you a little bit. Okay. This is interesting. I've never seen this before, but that's why we do surveys. There's somebody out there that's actually charging a flat fee on pets, and it's 10% of the average rent. Okay. So that's quite interesting. Just to push the envelope on what's possible. We also see here in terms of the maximum pet fee from a flat perspective is $100 a month. And that's actually one of our clients I know that does that. And they have a tiered system, but like specialty breeds are up there at $100. And, there's upside there potentially depending on your market. But I think hotels are a good example of a comparable in terms of what's possible when it comes to what people are willing to pay around pets. So a couple of interesting other points here. If you're like, hey, how do I roll this out? Well, here's a free plug for petscreening.com. 60.1% of survey respondents use a third party, and 100% of those are using petscreening.com. Okay, so if you want to have a partner in rolling this out, they help with the pet screening. They do validation for emotional support animals. And that is a good segue into the other thing that I want to say about this, and that is internal adoption on this fee. And essentially, the internal portfolio adoption is really important to note. This is one of the, this is some of the phenomenal data in this report is like, hey, like how many of my units are probably having, probably have pets, or if they don't have, if they, or at least, how many should be paying a pet fee that if we exclude legitimate emotional support animals. And so in that case, you have this data right here to help answer that question. So the average adoption on this fee, for those who are charging it, is basically 32% of their units are charging this, okay? And so, are paying this fee. But the top 25% actually have 67.8% of their units paying this fee, okay? So gives you a little bit of sense of what's possible. Again, self-reported data here, so be aware of that. But this is a good, some good context for understanding what's possible. And I think this is a good place in the webinar. All right, as you're on this webinar digesting what this means for you. I'm going to kind of actually skip to the end of the presentation for a second to help you really think through the answer to that question. And here's the 3 ways to act on this data. It is number 1, to reset pricing on current fees and services. Number 2, to increase adoption on current fees and services. And that's what we're just talking about in the context of the pet fee, okay? It's not just enough to roll it out. We've seen plenty of people roll out fees. They don't get adoption and they don't get the results. So that's key. And number 3 is obviously implementation of new fees. So even if you're already charging one of these fees, offering one of these services, you need to ask yourself, is there an opportunity to reset pricing? And is there an opportunity to increase adoption? And again, all of this is in the context of a conversation that's team-driven, quarterly operationalized, and focused on value maximization, okay? At the end of the day, a focus on creating, defining, communicating value to owners and tenants is what's going to win the day. All right, let's go on and talk a little bit about some of the other ones and a little bit more quickly. So resident benefits package, and Second Nature is sponsoring. No, I'm just kidding. They're not sponsoring this section of the webinar. But we're going to talk a little bit about resident benefits package for just a second. And this is certainly important. It's showing up number 4 on the list in terms of impact. And 90% of people charge it flat. But if you're like, hey, what are people actually doing out there? Have you ever seen data that's as comprehensive as this on what is actually being charged? You can see the vast majority of people are between 20 and 50 bucks, but there's a lot of people that are actually upwards of $50 on a resident benefits package. Here's the average right here, 34 bucks, 35 bucks, and the top 25% average $50 on the resident benefits package, okay? Third-party providers, 72% of people are using a third-party provider, and 69% of those people are using Second Nature. Latchel is also supporting, and then multiple others are supporting as well. Okay, in terms of the rollout here, this is something that I want to just note, and that is this can be done well, and this can be done poorly. Yeah, so a lot of the people in chat can answer the question, what is a resident benefits package? Essentially, Arif, it's a package of services provided to residents that could be a mix of things that you're already providing, but perhaps not charging for, and new services such as credit reporting, filter replacement services, and sometimes insurance services are included as well, and then other amenities services for their home. So a variety of different things can be included. But I do want to just point out, this can be done well, this can be done poorly. Interestingly, I just thought this was interesting. Resident benefits package, actually, in terms of people submitting to the survey, a resident benefits package was actually ranked one of the lowest in terms of client reception by the tenants. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily, it's number 28, which is, really close to the bottom. I don't think that that's necessarily, intrinsic in the service itself. I was on the phone with a client yesterday and they were like, hey, our owners love this. Sorry, our tenants love this. Like, they're actually able to upgrade their purchasing ability as a result of the impact of the credit reporting on their credit score. So, but it is important to note that value and maximizing value is important, because a lot of people, if we go back to the chart here, are rolling this out as a mandatory fee. And I don't have issues with that, but the state might find issues with that at some point in your state. Certain states don't necessarily allow that. And if that ever becomes the case, you're going to have to sell it on a one-off basis, and you better have that value proposition dialed in. Adam, any input on that?
Yeah, it really comes down to, for me, this is a relatively newer concept, and anything that's new feels foreign and it's not widely adopted or accepted when you're rolling this out to your residents and tenants. I think that should be normalized. I think that as adoption goes up, it's going to be more commonplace in your market, and anywhere where someone goes to lease is going to say, oh, yep, resident benefit package, I'm aware of it. And adoption and ease of implementation will go up.
Yeah.
Just new.
Yeah, good feedback. All right, so just to kind of hit the rest of these at a high level, property protection program. This is essentially a program that's either self-funded or leverages traditional insurance options to provide protection to owners around evictions and cost of evictions, around rent loss in the case of delinquency, and also property protection as well. And so there's a number of different providers around that, and you can go in and click on that fee and see what kind of providers people are using. In fact, let's go ahead and just do that real quickly. Owner property protection program. So like, hey, how do I roll this out? Oh, looks like we don't have as much data on the providers there. Okay, there's different, I'll just give you a couple of names. SureVestor would be one. Also, SteadyRent.com, I believe is URL, would be another one. And there's others out there as well. Okay, and then an insurance compliance fee. This is interesting. Not very many people charge this, but it's the 6th largest revenue driver for the people that do, just based off of our calculations. What is this? This is essentially a fee that certain property managers charge their owners if their owners fail to name them as additionally insured on their policy. Okay, so property managers want the owners to name them as additionally insured. If they fail to do that, then I'm putting this roughly, but this fee is charged as a compliance fee if that's not done. Okay, so interesting opportunity there. We'd love to talk more about that with you if that's of interest. And then moving on down the line here, this is something that I'm seeing coming up more. And honestly, like, I would say that this is kind of around the cutting edge of value maximization opportunities, and that's an owner benefit package. Okay, and why do I say that? Well, the owner benefit package is actually not very commonly charged. You can see that only about a dozen people in the study are actually charging this, but they're actually finding
some decent amount of adoption with this as well. So an interesting opportunity, owner benefit package. If you want to find out more about that, feel free to reach out to us. Okay, last two on this list, credit contingency fee. This is essentially if tenants don't meet a standard of on a credit reporting evaluation, that they get charged an oversight fee as a result of that. Owner inspection fee is just annual, biannual, or ad hoc inspections. And then tenant liability insurance fee. Oftentimes, property managers will charge an administrative fee for providing that insurance service. So there you go. That's the list of the top 10. Now, I want to wrap up here with some thoughts on how to implement a quarterly pricing process in your business. And as we discussed, the essence of this exercise is you got to reset pricing on current fees or services, increase adoption on current fees and services, implement new fees and services, but all in the context of a quarterly team-driven operationalized approach to pricing. And so what does that look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. And I want to just walk you through, skipping a few of these slides, walk you through a process and a tool and a program that can help you implement a quarterly operationalized team endeavor focused on value maximization. And that is a new service from ProfitCoach called RevMax. And RevMax is essentially a monthly revenue management service designed to help you implement a quarterly pricing strategy in your business. Adam's an early adopter. Appreciate that, Adam. Adam will give us a little bit of his take on this in a moment. But essentially, the components are a machine, what we call the RPU machine, that allows for per property, revenue per unit analysis, analyzing revenue per unit aggressiveness, and service and fee adoption on a per property basis. Okay, I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a moment. So if you're like, hey, I need to see a visual, hang tight. I'm going to actually show you what that looks like. And then you can slice that analysis by property manager or portfolio or department or property type or fee type. And that all rolls up into a summary dashboard that gives you the data that you need to engage the team in this quarterly pricing process, as well as generate action lists, what we call the do or die analysis generator, which is a list of properties that need to be taken action on because they fall below certain thresholds of pricing, adoption, or whatever it might be. And then based off of that data, the baseline data of what's actually happening today, RevMax helps you forecast the future, both in terms of here's how much revenue we can get from this existing fee or this new fee if we increase adoption or if we increase the price. And here's how many actual transactions would need to be created in order to hit that target. So, hey, we want to get to XYZ dollars on the resident benefits package. You're going to need to hit 700 monthly charges on that, for example. And the forecast versus actuals come in so that you can actually see if you're achieving those goals on a monthly basis. And then the third component of RevMax is a revenue per unit analysis team review call, where we get on the phone with your team to help them see on a departmental or portfolio basis how they're actually performing and get your team on board with driving revenue per unit with this in-depth review of their performance relative to the targets that have been set around adoption and number of charges. Okay, so that's the third component. The fourth component is then a one-on-one revenue per unit coaching with ProfitCoach, where we dive further into forecasting improvements in your revenue per unit, either as a result of increasing adoption rates or through new service fee implementation. And then also setting up a quarterly pricing review cadence in your company in 3 areas focused on increasing adoption rate, implementing new services or fees, and defining which, if any, properties need to be increased or terminated. Okay, so that's a look at the overall coaching. One last piece is then setting up the strategies for driving team engagement around quarterly initiatives, whether that's helping them understand the win-win, setting up reporting and accountability incentives and celebration to drive engagement with the team to actually put these initiatives in place. So here's what this means to you. You can implement a quarterly pricing process in your business that is statistically shown to drive substantial new revenue. You can get financial clarity on what you need around pricing to drive commitment and change with your team. And you can dramatically improve the most dynamic profit lever in your business, we anticipate, by 2 to 10%. So Adam, you guys just got going with this a couple of weeks ago. What's been your experience so far?
Yeah, with regards to, I mean, we spent a lot of time on the top 10, right? Things that we've done. And I mean, we've probably only adopted maybe 6 or 7 of those. So like, that's awesome to seek those new opportunities. As we dive into this deeper stuff with ProfitCoach, it's been really great to see all the holes, all the leaks in the hull of our boat on where we thought adoption was a lot higher than it actually was. And it's then driving change. Like, was that a person? Was that a portfolio manager that has not adopted that? Or was it a department for us that was like, hey, we said we're charging this, it's written in the management agreement, but we never actually brought this to fruition. We haven't been charging it. And so we're fixing up a lot of those leaky holes that we've had. And then with regards to like resetting pricing and expectations, is traditionally we do it annually. And I've been pushed by RevMax because I get very comfortable. And the ProfitCoach guys been like, why do you have to wait until October, November to roll these things out for year end? It's like, let's get on top of it. And I'll be like, let's just wait. And it'll be like, I'll give you 100,000 reasons on why you need to do this now. And, oh, you're talking about hiring that new person on your team and they're an A player and they're top talent. Well, this is how you can afford them by being an early adopter and not waiting till the end of the year to make these changes. So it's been super enlightening and getting very, very granular on where we actually stand, and then being able to look forward and saying, all right, in 8 months, this is where we're going to be, and we can strategize around expenses based off of our revenue and what things we're going to change and why we're going to change them, versus just operating by feel. Like, oh, that feels good. I talked to my buddy, we're doing that, I'll do it too. It gives us massive transparency and actionable items. So
love it, Adam. You nailed it. Would you come sell RevMax for me? Okay.
Great.
So some of you are asking, okay, what's the cost? For most clients, first year investment will be covered by a minimal 1 to 1.5% bump in revenue per unit. If you'd like to dive further into this, we'd love to schedule a demo call with you. But our guarantee is if after 6 months you don't feel it's worth $1, just pay whatever you think it's worth. That's how much we believe in this program. As my partner puts it, this is as close as it gets to creating a money machine. So if this is of interest to you and you want to learn more about it, I'm going to launch a poll. And all I need you to do is just enter your email address as an indication that you'd like to schedule a demo. And we'd love to jump on the phone and show you a little bit more about how this works and what it would look like in your company, what kind of results you would anticipate, and certainly what the pricing structure it looks like. So if that's of interest, go ahead and respond to that poll there, and we'd love to get on the phone with you and talk through that. Okay, as we wrap up, Adam, what's next? We talked about the opportunity to get your hands on this. Go to pmprofitcoach.com/pricing. If you are not a contributor, you can pick this report up for $495. If you were a contributor, you have received it, or if it didn't come to you, just shoot us an email. We'll make sure you get it. But how to act on the 2023 pricing report. Reset pricing on current fees and services, increase adoption on current fees and services, implement new fees and services. Go through that summary tab on the report and basically study this and say, all right, where are we on each of these? Are we doing it? Yes. Can we increase the fee? Can we increase adoption? If we're not doing it, is it a good fit for our value proposition? So just walk through it line by line and go dive into what's possible for each of these particular revenue streams. Adam, you guys doubled your revenue per unit approximately in the last 2 to 3 years. Any final advice that you would give to folks around how to take action on what we have discussed today?
Take action. I think you have to have belief before you commit to it, and making sure that the value proposition is there. Don't go just rolling out stuff just because someone else is doing it. Definitely bring the value around it, but definitely take action. I mean, even if you want to maintain a lean, mean, profitable machine, do that. but like always be thinking like, how can I afford the next person? How can I drive profits? How do I get freedom of time? And by having this report, it gives you basically the tools to unlock a lot of really great opportunities for yourself, your teammates. I mean, it's not just profit, it's what you do with those profits, but definitely take action. It's been monumental for me and life-changing for me.
Awesome. Adam, thanks so much for being here. Alicia, thank you for all you invested in this report. The feedback's coming in. Some fantastic insight people have gotten out of this. Go ahead and jump in if you want to schedule a demo call or reach out to us. And here's to improving your revenue per unit by 10%. Folks, have a great day. Thanks so much for jumping online. Adam, thank you very much for being here. And happy Tuesday, everybody. And I'll figure out how to shut this meeting off here before long. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.